You are both the person who withdraws completely and the one who feels everything those around you feel. You need absolute solitude, and you are terrified of being forgotten. You see through people instantly, and you spend years trying to understand yourself. If these contradictions have led you to wonder whether something is fundamentally wrong with you, this video will explain why they exist and why they have always existed. The myths remember what psychology forgot. Welcome to Power and Myth. The contradictions you carry are not personality inconsistencies. They are the signatures of ancient patterns Jung spent decades mapping, archetypal structures that exist across cultures and time. What appears to be confusion in modern personality language becomes coherent the moment you interpret it through the lens of myth. The forgotten myths are not entertainment, they are explanations, and they have been waiting for you to find them. You withdraw from everyone and then feel desperately alone. You are the hermit who aches to be seen, the observer who longs to be witnessed. Other people think this is a simple choice, either be social or be solitary. But you know it is not that straightforward. You retreat because the world is too much. The noise, the performance, the shallow exchanges that pass for connection. They drain you until there is nothing left. So you vanish, you close the door, you turn off your phone, you disappear into yourself, because that is the only place that feels real. And then the loneliness arrives, not the loneliness of missing specific people, the loneliness of wondering whether anyone would notice if you never came back. You are Hestia, the Greek goddess who chose the hearth over Olympus. She turned down a throne to tend the sacred fire at the center of the home. The other gods feasted and fought, and performed their dramas while she remained still, holding the space that made everything else possible. But here is what the myths rarely mention. Hestia was also the most forgotten, the goddess with no stories, the one whose sacrifice was invisible because it was constant. You know this pattern intimately. You hold space for everyone around you while slowly disappearing from your own life. You help everyone but cannot be helped. This is the wounded healer's inheritance, the pattern Jung identified in Chiron, the centaur who could heal every injury except his own. You absorb other people's pain without trying. You walk into a room feeling fine and leave carrying someone else's despair. You know what is wrong before they have finished their sentence. You see the wound beneath the words, and you offer what they need, the right question, the gentle reframing, the permission to finally name what they have been carrying in silence. But when you are the one breaking, there is no one who can reach you. Not because they do not care, because the mechanism that makes you such a profound healer is the same mechanism that places your own wound beyond reach. Chiron's pain came from a poisoned arrow that could not be removed. Your pain comes from a sensitivity so acute that the very act of being helped requires you to open in ways that feel unbearable. So you heal in solitude, you metabolize your own suffering alone, and the contradiction deepens the more you give to others, the more isolated you become in your own need. You see the future, and no one believes you. You are Cassandra, cursed not with false visions, but with accurate ones that will never be trusted. You have known how the story ends since the second act began. You see the pattern completing itself, the relationship that will implode, the job that will become unbearable, the person who is lying even as they smile. And you try to warn them, gently at first, then more directly. And they look at you as though you are paranoid, over-analytical, projecting, so you stop speaking. You watch it unfold exactly as you knew it would, and when it finally breaks, no one remembers that you told them. This is not intuition in the soft, vague sense. This is dominant cognition processing unconscious data at a speed that bypasses conscious reasoning. Jung understood this as access to the collective unconscious, the shared psychological structures laid down over millennia. You are not predicting the future. You are completing patterns that most people cannot see because they exist beneath the surface of observable behavior. But the burden of the seer is always the same, you know. And knowing changes nothing. Forgotten myths reveal something essential. These contradictions are not bugs in your personality. They are the architecture of specific archetypes. You are not broken because you embody paradox. You are participating in patterns that have structured human consciousness since consciousness began. The myths were never meant to be stories about gods and heroes. They were maps of psychological territory. And the territory you inhabit, the one where you are simultaneously too much and not enough, visible and invisible, needed and unseen, is ancient ground. There is another myth most people have forgotten. Persephone, who belongs to two worlds and is at home in neither. Every year she descends to the underworld, and every year she returns to the surface. But here is what the sanitized versions leave out. She is not merely visiting these realms. She is queen of the dead, whilst also being the goddess of spring growth. She holds both, the darkness and the light, the ending and the beginning. She is the threshold itself. You know this structure intimately. You live between worlds. You understand the surface realm. You can perform it when necessary, speak its language and wear its costumes. But your real citizenship is elsewhere, in the depths, in the patterns beneath the patterns, in the place where meaning lives. And this makes you permanently liminal, the one who translates between the world of appearances and the world of essence, the one who can move between them but belongs fully to neither. The exhaustion you feel is not from moving between these worlds. It is from the fact that no one else sees that there are two worlds at all. Jung wrote about the tension of opposites, the idea that consciousness develops through holding contradictions rather than resolving them. He called it enantiodromia, the principle that everything eventually transforms into its opposite. The hermit becomes the teacher, the wounded one becomes the healer, the exile becomes the guide. For this transformation to happen, you must first stop trying to fix the contradiction. The INFJ's work is not to become less contradictory. It is to recognize that the contradiction is the structure itself. You are the shapeshifter, not because you are false, but because you contain multitudes. Proteus, the Greek sea god who could take any form, was called the old man of the sea, ancient, wise, impossible to pin down. When heroes wanted prophecy from him, they had to hold him whilst he shifted through every shape imaginable. Fire, water, wild beasts. Only if they held on through all the transformations would he finally speak truth. You are this, the one who contains all forms and belongs to none. The one thing people must learn to hold without demanding that you become singular. Here is the shadow that lives in these contradictions. The hermit who vanishes completely risks becoming invisible even to herself. The wounded healer who refuses to be helped risks martyrdom disguised as service. The seer who knows too much risks cynicism disguised as pattern recognition. The shapeshifter who adapts to every environment risks forgetting which face is actually hers. These are not warnings to stop being who you are. They are reminders that every archetype has a shadow form, a way of collapsing into its own pathology. The work is not to eliminate the contradiction. The work is to stay conscious whilst living it, to be the hermit without disappearing, to heal without self-abandoning, to know without becoming bitter, to shapeshift without losing your center. There is a reason these myths feel like recognition rather than metaphor. They describe psychological patterns that do not change across time. The Greek Hestia, the Roman Vesta, the Celtic Brigid, different cultures, different names, same archetype. The one who holds the center whilst everyone else lives at the edges. The wounded healer appears in every mythology because the pattern itself is universal. Chiron, Asclepios, the Fisher King, the shamans who must be broken before they can heal, they describe a cognitive emotional structure that some people embody and others do not. You are not choosing these contradictions. You are living an archetypal inheritance. And once you see that, the contradictions stop feeling like personal failure and start feeling like ancient recognition. The myths also offer something else, a way through. Persephone does not stop moving between worlds, she learns to rule both. Chiron does not heal his wound, he transforms it into wisdom that makes him the teacher of heroes. Cassandra is never believed, but her knowing still matters because truth does not require belief to be true. Hestia remains at the hearth, but the hearth becomes sacred because she is there. The contradictions do not resolve, they deepen. They become the source of your authority rather than the evidence of your brokenness. This is initiation, not self-help. You are not being taught how to fix yourself. You are being shown that you were never broken. You are simply living a pattern that modern psychology has no language for, but ancient myth mapped with precision. If you are exhausted from trying to reconcile what cannot be reconciled, this is your permission to stop. The contradictions are not the problem. The expectation that you should be singular, consistent, and easily categorized, that is the problem. You are the threshold, the between space. The one who holds opposites, because holding opposites is what creates consciousness itself. Jung knew this. The myths knew this. And now you know this. The forgotten myths are not forgotten because they are irrelevant. They are forgotten because the world prefers simple stories. But you have never been a simple story, and you were never meant to be. Which myth named you today? The wounded healer who metabolizes pain alone? The seer whose knowing is never quite believed? Persephone belonging to two worlds and home in neither? Tell me in the comments which contradiction finally made sense. And if you want to keep exploring this territory where your depth is not too much but exactly right, subscribe. This is Power and Myth, and you are part of something here, a gathering of those who have always known they were living inside a pattern larger than personality. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.